Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue Podcast. I am your host, Mike Musto, together again with Mr. Ryan Douthit of Driving Sports TV. And today I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. Ryan's already primed for this, but I don't care. I'm ready. And what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about car payments. And I want to throw out some banana stats to you guys right now. Now, these stats are coming from Lending Tree. These, they do car loans, auto loans, everything else. But they're also great at data collection. I want to run through these for you. The average payments via 2024. So what people are spending in 2024 for cars.
I think people should sit down first, though, because
yeah, this one's gonna. Let's put it this way: I'm gonna read these numbers to you. If they don't tweak you, there's a problem. Okay. So first off, average new car payment in 2024. $738,000. Wait, no, that's really high.
That's not right.
Wow, I need more coffee. Average new car payment, $738. I put a bunch more zeros.
You just made it sound like 738. Oh, that's not bad at all compared to 738,000.
I mean, we're getting to that point. 10, 15 years, $738,000 for a new car payment. It's fine. It's all good. No, but the average new car payment is actually $738 per month.
Yeah.
The average lease payment is $606, and the average used car payment is $523 a month. Now, think about that for a second. $738 a month. That is an enormous amount. At least I think that's a huge amount of money to pay for a car payment. Do you? I mean, am I off on this, Ryan?
The worst one out of all of those that really hurt me was over $500 for a used car.
Yeah. It's interesting. We look at cars, Ryan and I both do. We look at, hundreds of cars every week on whether it's auction sites or whether it's collector sites or whether it's whatever the case is. We do it as a hobby. And when I hear people going out and spending this kind of money on a used car, like $500 a month on a used car,
yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah,
like, are you making these purchases? Are these ego purchases that you're making?
And the thing I want to throw down here is that there are deals right now because if you go out there and you look at the overall market, you can find lease deal. Like if you want a brand new car, you can lease a brand new car for under $300 if you shop around.
Yeah, you can.
So it's
now,
like
there's going to be money down on that, right? You might have to put a couple of grand down.
And you have to have good credit again.
You have to have good credit. Okay. But when we talk about these statistics and we talk about these average payments, right? Again, $738 for new, $606 for used or for lease, and then $523 for used. These are big numbers, especially when we come to the used car category, right?
Yeah.
There are plenty of used cars out there that you can buy for sub $10,000. Plenty of good used cars that you could buy for sub $10,000. But it seems that the trend is that we're going to go into the dealership. The dealer is going to do what they always do and say, well, what kind of payment do you want? Right?
Let's craft this deal just for you.
Yeah, just for you. And
does that report show the APR that people are paying on this stuff?
I don't believe it shows the APR
because it's not good these days. It's going to be over 6 most likely.
Oh, there's no question about it.
So not only is it $750 or whatever a month, it's at 6% APR.
Yeah.
Now the only down. Go ahead.
This is an interesting stat, right? It says borrowers with a prime credit scores are responsible for the majority of retail vehicle financing. Borrowers with credit scores of 661 or higher account for 68.5 of retail vehicle financing, right? Okay. So people that their credit's seemingly okay, they're doing most of the financing and stuff like that. But I come from the school of if you have a payment, you're in debt. Right. I always try to pay everything off, pay for it cash. And the way I look at stuff is if I can't pay cash for it, I can't afford it. I mean, the exception to that is a home. Okay.
Right. But because that's usually accrues, it usually goes up in value typically, at least since I've been alive.
Well, yeah. But when I see all these insane car payments and I see people bitching that they can't afford a car and they can't do this, and yet they're driving around in a a brand new, whatever it is, a brand new Charger
Yeah.
or a Challenger
Yeah.
or whatever SUV they just leased and or financed.
Yeah.
I always wonder how they justify the finance, the rate, and how
So,
they
Mike, I'm
justify
going to
the.
justify the financing for you right here.
Yeah, please do, because I'm confused as
Um,
hell.
this is not tax advice at all. So please do not take. I am an idiot when it comes to taxes, but I do know this one thing. There's a thing called a Section 179, where if you buy a vehicle that weighs over 6,000
Yeah,
pounds
that
and it's
right.
on an
Yep.
approved list, you get a.
Yep.
It used to be 100% write-off of that vehicle in the first year. Now I believe it's 80%, and you have to have it as the year goes over to the next year. So I think that actually will help skew the data, because anybody who has the ability, because they have a small business or even just a
Yeah.
side business, they go out and they buy that GMC for $120,000. They can write that off like $100,000
Yeah.
write-off in year one. And they
Right.
can make those payments for 2 years, make the equivalent of like $20,000 in payments, yet they still got that massive write-off. And I think that actually, my old boss used to do this. This is how I
Yeah.
actually found out about this. And I was always like, why do you always buy a Suburban? And he's like,
Right.
bro.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
like, it's
I
a
mean,
massive write-off. And I think that helps skew the numbers up a little bit, because people
Yeah.
are buying vehicles that are much larger. Because what would you rather do? Write a massive check to the government? Or would you rather write a massive check to drive around in a really nice car, that more than you would normally do if you have a profitable year? So, so that is something that might skew numbers a little bit. However, I don't know if there's enough of that going on to really push it quite that high. So there is one reason to do that. Outside of that, I can't think of a single reason to do that.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And I'm always wondering, when people go in and they buy new cars or they finance new cars,
Mhm.
so much of buying an automobile. Well, listen, we both know this, and we're both guilty of it, right? Is an emotional decision, right? We talk about
Yes.
cars that we want, and they
Mhm.
make us feel a certain way, and whatever the case is. But you also have to kind of come into the, well, can I actually afford it?
Right.
Mentality. And I don't know, man. I look at stuff. Let's put it this way: how much money would you have to make to feel comfortable about paying $738 a month? When, if you look around and you talk about what rents are going for right now,
Yes.
we both live in Europe and Washington. I'm in Northern California. We live in places where, let's face it, housing is very, very high. Whether you're
Insane.
purchasing or whether you're renting, housing costs, you're paying a minimum. I'll say a minimum of probably 2,800 to and up per month.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a little on the outskirts now, so you can find places for around 1,500. But even that, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere with no bus service, no nothing. I mean, you need
Right.
a nice car, because you spend a lot of time in it out here. So
But
it's one or the other, basically. If you're in town where you actually have convenience and utilities and buses and stuff, even Uber. I don't even think Uber comes out where I'm at. Then you're going to be paying minimum of like 28 to 335 for a place that doesn't absolutely suck and contain mold. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's
well,
pretty bad.
if you think about it though, right? Like, if you go by the average car payment, it's $738. That's $8,856 a year.
Oh no,
Okay?
he's doing math. I see him doing
I'm
math.
doing math, and this is bad. This is bad.
It's
Nobody
getting
ever wants me to
This
do
is
math.
how invested Mike is in this. Mike said, "Hey, let's do a show today," and I'm sure he had this like full thing on. I'm going to talk about this car and that car, and then he probably 5 minutes before broadcast read an article and said, "No, no, 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 that's all in the garbage. We're doing numbers. I'm talking about payments."
Shut up, Brian. That's exactly what happened. So, all right. So I'm going to throw this out, right? Just say the average price, the average rental home, okay, for people that aren't, is $2,500 a month, okay, which is
Sure.
pretty reasonable.
I mean, that's
Right now, if you're in that new car payment of $738 a month, you're talking with rental at $2,500 a month for rent, car payment. You're talking $38,000 a year. That's just in that, and that's cash outlay that you're paying.
Yep.
Straight up. That's
minimum wage won't even cover that. Yeah.
Right. So
let alone food, insurance, whatever.
Everything else. So how I guess I'm always confused, and I don't know, maybe I look at things differently, but like, who's buying all these cars? And like, who's approving all these cars to say, yeah, you could definitely afford this.
It'd be fine. It's all the loan companies that'll get bailed out the next time the market
Oh,
implodes.
but then it also comes down to the person themselves. Like where, and if anybody's listening out there
Mhm.
that's on the fence about doing this, what the hell are you thinking? Like if you're gonna have like a $700-800 a month car payment, let me tell you something. You can't afford the car.
Yeah.
You can't afford it. You can't.
So it goes a little bit like this. Guy walks in and he's like, I could buy this practical people mover, or I could buy this machine that the ladies will dig.
Oh,
Think I'll
dude,
go with
I
that
just,
one.
but if you are, man,
It's tough. But the costs of everything is so high. Like I spend personally, I have unsubsidized health insurance. Like
mhm,
I own my own company. I
right,
don't make so little that the government subsidizes me
right,
at all. I'm writing a check for $2,500 a month every month for a
for health
perfectly healthy
insurance,
family of four.
right.
We're perfectly
That's
healthy.
that
Like
is that's a huge number.
it's a
That's a
huge
huge
number. And so you
number.
look at a car payment and you're like, well, I'm just writing this into the ether. I'll drive a nice car too. I mean, so I think it's easy for people when you look at the costs of everything around us
Yeah,
to kind of like, you kind of inch that number up. You're like, well, I mean, $700, yeah, it's a lot, but it's not that much different from four, you
right.
know?
Well, what's interesting is auto loan debt is the second largest category behind mortgages,
Hmm.
right? Because I mean, let's face it, right? If you're going to buy a new car, it's probably the second largest purchase you're going to make behind a
Yeah.
house, unless you're in the upper tax bracket and you're
Mike, I
buying
know
boats
you've
and
been
stuff.
shopping for houses. How much are houses going for in the Bay Area these days?
Oh, please, you're not if you're in the Bay Area, you're not touching a house for under 750. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not happening.
And that's
Um,
not, I mean,
oh no,
that's out there.
that's a house that it's either in the Bay Area and needs $150,000 worth of work, not an exaggeration,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
um, it's way out there
Hmm.
in the burbs,
Hmm.
miles and miles from everything. Now granted, I mean, we talk to people that are all over the country, right?
Yeah.
Car payments you would think would be pretty level, but that's not the case. Insurance has gone up. God, it seems like 20% in the last 3 to 4 years. I know my insurance bill on my cars went up 25% this year. And
Wow.
I was like, wait a minute, whoa, back up. And I called the insurance company. And I was like, I don't have any accidents. I don't
Yeah. What
have any
happened?
tickets. I don't have anything. And
Yeah.
one of the things that was interesting was they came back and they said the price to insure new cars is getting greater and greater and greater because the cost to fix them.
Wait. Hold up. That's where you're like, excuse me, do you see anything in my garage that's newer than 20 years old?
Well, that's just it. And I had this conversation and they said, well, the price of fixing a new car is exponentially more than fixing an old car.
Hmm.
So all these vehicles that everybody is spending $700-800 a month for, okay, are driving the price of our insurance, the price of everything up, the price of body shops, because there's so like if you get into a little fender bender
Oh my
and
gosh.
somebody
That
dings
is
your
my
bumper,
nightmare. And it's because
dude,
I make money on the cars that I buy because I use them
right,
as for my show. So my worst nightmare is having a small fender bender that
fender
takes
bender,
my vehicle out of commission so I can't film with it and
yep.
make payments on it while I'm not filming. Like that kind of a thing. That terrifies me. That is how I lose money on
Well,
anything.
when you think about it, right, the lowest cost of a body shop visit right now is around $1,000.
Yeah.
That's what
Oh,
it costs,
you're
and
nuts.
that's for a ding. That's for a little minor
Yeah,
thing,
that's
right?
nothing.
The actual cost of repairs on most accidents is between $6,000 and $9,000
And
to
it seems to
fix a
take at
vehicle.
least 90 days at a minimum these days to get
Yeah,
anything done from a body shop.
right.
I saw just in passing, I didn't read all the details, but I saw a article about one of the publications has a Fisker Ocean that got
Oh
dinged.
God. Oh, I
It
saw this.
got dinged. It was
Go
six
ahead, keep
hundred
going.
fifty dollars of damage, but the insurance company wrote off the vehicle because there were no replacement parts.
Well, dude, they're
What?
using Fisker right now
Hmm.
is using test mule parts to deal with warranty claims. That's what I read. And I'm like, what? Because I mean, listen, and I've seen a few Fisker Oceans on the road.
Yeah.
And I feel terrible for the owners that they talk about a bait and switch, talk about getting duped. These poor people spend $70,000 for a vehicle that's worth $20,000. I mean,
and honestly, even at 20,000, it's, if you can't fix your vehicle, what's the point?
It's a paperweight.
Yeah, stuff happens. It's like, this car is perfect. I love it. Yeah. Hope to God nothing happens ever on the road, which always happens. Like, can you even get a windshield replaced on that thing? Like, probably not.
I have no idea. What I keep looking at, though, is that, it used to be where we would talk about vehicles becoming a luxury. In the future, you're never going to be able to own a vehicle and it's just going to become too expensive. You know what? I almost feel like we're getting to that point where owning vehicles is going to be an absolute luxury, because when you talk about the cost of a new vehicle, the average price of a new vehicle is around $44,000. That's a huge amount of money, right? You're hearing salaries are going down, not up. Okay. Cost of insurance is going up and up and up. Cost of everything is going up. So for those people actually going out and buying these vehicles, like how much money are you actually making?
I think a lot of it has to do with people who are buying well above what they should buy, clearly. I mean, because you can buy a Ford Maverick pickup hybrid for like 25 grand. That is honestly what 90% of the people can get away with. There's two vehicles that basically
you can justify.
I mean, the Subaru Crosstrek, which will get you anywhere, super convenient, great for around town. My wife drives one. She loves it. Cheap. And parts are readily available, and they retain their value, actually. So when you go to sell it or trade it in, you get a pretty good trade-in. And then the Ford Maverick, just because it's so incredibly practical. You have a truck bed, you have a hybrid, you get like 40 miles to the gallon. I mean, and it costs $26,000. I mean, people should just be buying those, but instead.
But Ryan, I don't want that. I don't want a pickup.
But Ryan, it's not a Raptor.
It's not a this. It's not, and this is the other part.
But what if I want to tow a 20,000 pound boat? Did you think of that? Do you own a 20,000 pound boat? But I might someday when I'm rich.
I have to have 4-wheel drive. You live in Southern California. Where are you going? Where it doesn't even rain. Like, what are you doing? This is the thing that I don't understand. I mean, I look at. And listen, I think we all have friends of ours that are guilty of this too. Like, I have friends of mine that will go out and buy these cars, and I'm looking at them and I'm going, guys, and I know how much money they make. I'm going, you can't afford this.
That's the tricky one.
It's fine. I'm like, but you can't. I'm like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but basic math, and I suck at math, says this is a poor move on your part to do this.
Your friends are watching this right now going, hey, he's talking about me. That's not.
Oh no, they listen. My friends absolutely know that anything that I will say here, I will double it to their face.
True.
So I'm not worried about somebody calling me and being like, "You're an asshole, Mike. I can't believe you said that on the podcast."
Like, yes.
It's like I said it to your face. You know this, you schmuck, right? So it's like, I think people really need to take a hard look at their finances before they go out and buy a new car. Because the fact of the matter is, there are hundreds of thousands of used cars, used cars that you don't have to buy from a dealer, between $5,000 and $10,000. They're not going to be necessarily what you want.
When you and I were in college, when we were teenagers and in our 20s, most of the used cars were from the Malaise era. They sucked. Like, basically. You had to really be picky about what you could buy. But these days, a 20-year-old car can be a really nice Camry, and that is a good car.
It's a great car.
And I always tell people, forever, and it'll do.
Dude, look for used Camrys, look for used Corollas, look for used Hyundais, look for all these cars. 100,000 miles, and this, right to your point, is not what it was 30 years ago, right? In the mid 80s, the 90s. 100,000 mile car, you'd be like, I don't know about this, because those cars they came obviously from the late 70s, early 80s, right? Yep. But now you buy a Camry from the year 2000, dude, that's a 200,000 mile car at a minimum.
Yeah.
And I mean,
my neighbor just bought a Subaru Outback, fully loaded with eyesight and everything on it, all the safety stuff. He bought a salvage title because he's like, It's cheap enough. I don't have to worry about replacement warranty, and I can get it insured, I guess, for liability, I guess. I mean,
Right.
he did his own homework on that. So,
Sure.
some insurers won't touch that. But in his case, it was fine. And he paid half as much as that car would be worth. And I'm
Well,
like, you paid how much for a Subaru Outback? And it's a really nice one.
Dude, I
it's
had a
getting
buddy
clever with the system.
Well, you have to. It was funny. I bought, and I've said this before, like I've got my 2002 Grand Cherokee, and I bought that for $5,000. Now, the truck in and of itself is in astonishingly good shape. And here's the other thing. I maintain it. I take care of it. But I had a buddy of mine come down and he got in it and he looked at it. He goes, "You paid $5,000 for this." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "How many miles does it have it on it?" And I think I put 30 plus thousand. I think I'm just at 150,000 miles on it. In total, I bought it for $5,000. I think I'm into it for probably 7. I put tires on it and I put shocks into it, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But you know what? What a reliable thing it's been. And again, it comes also down to basic maintenance. Cars from the 2000s, they'll go 200,000 miles. Okay. Will you have to
even
put
a
couple of bucks
Stellantis product?
It really will. And I think people they shy away from these cars going, "Oh, well, what if I have to put money into it?" Well, what if you do? Yeah. Even if you buy a car, say you buy a car for $10,000 and you've got to put, this is worst case, you got to put $10,000 into it. Okay. Over 5 years. Okay. So now you paid $20,000 for a car that you're going to have for 5 years, as opposed to taking out a 60-month auto loan. Okay. Right. Or a 72-month loan that you're going to pay $700 a month for. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. If you're in the tax bracket where you can do it, God bless. Way to go. Go buy a new car. Enjoy everything that you can with it.
One thing I find interesting is that because I deal with new cars for the most part, that's mostly what I review. I get a lot of feedback from viewers who are like, "Well, why don't you review this vehicle? Or why don't you do this? Right. Or the new vehicles should be like this." And I'm like, "Well, the vehicle you want was already made 5 years ago. So just buy that." A really good example is the Jeep Cherokee, like not the Grand Cherokee, just the Cherokee. That meets, for people who want to do a little light off-roading or something like that, that vehicle is amazing. You remember I had one at our shoot back in Vermont.
And we were talking about it not too long ago.
It has a great all-wheel drive system, and you can get them for cheap because they made so many of them. And it has a super reliable V6 under the hood. I mean, it's like, and it's kind of one of those things. They're like, "Wow, nobody makes that anymore. It's really disappointing." It's like, why? There's 100,000 of them out there. In fact, I just did a search on Hemmings auctions and I found like 4 of them. I mean, it's like not hard to find.
Dude, they're out there. And there are like some great deals out there that you can get. But you have to be able to do a little research. And you also have to be willing to say, "You know what, this might not be the exact car that I want. But if I have to have a new car, listen, this was the lowest lease payment I could find. It's $350 a month. Okay, fine. It's a brand new car with a warranty. You don't have to worry about it, especially if you're not running around doing 12,000 miles a year."
Did you notice that there's a Jeep Trackhawk currently for sale on the Hemmings auctions? Wow.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's a Trackhawk listed. I love that thing. So good.
Dude, they are good. But don't buy it.
I don't mean
buy
for this
it
to
because
sound like a Hemmings ad, but I didn't know that you could get something like a Trackhawk. When I think of Hemmings, I think of older vehicles, not necessarily like new hotness, and that's new hotness right there.
Oh no, dude. The crazy part is we're totally digressing here, but Ryan's right. We are getting some absolutely great vehicles on the auction and in the classifieds. We're getting Porsches, we're getting Audis, we're getting things like Trackhawks. The vehicles that we're getting now are so above and beyond what we used to get, say 5 or 6 years ago. And I mean, we've got a beautiful 911 like a 930 turbo on there. And like, nice. We've got some crazy stuff, but we digressed a little bit on that. But here's the thing, people. Again, we talk about car buying. I guess it comes down to this. Think about what you can afford. Don't fall into those traps where you're going to go into a dealer and you're going to walk out with an $800 payment every month that you are going to be stressing over.
Don't talk to the dealer about what you can afford with your maximum payment.
No.
Talk about what you're actually buying and how much that item is, and then worry about your own financing. And don't just try to get it low. Try to get the net sum of the purchase low.
Yeah. Go in, and when you talk about if you're looking at a new car, get the dealer to tell you the out the door price on the car, and then work backwards from that. Don't go in and say, well, I think I can afford. The dealer's favorite trick is to look at you and go, well, what do you want your payment to be? Well, I want my payment to be 0. That's what I want. Can you do that? Can you give me the car for free? So like,
we don't like you, Mike. Get out of here.
Yeah, like don't fall into the traps. Do your experience.
Yep.
Shop. Do not be afraid to travel for a vehicle. Okay. If you find a used vehicle that you like that's not going to break your bank and it's 2 states away, buy a plane ticket for $200. If it's at a dealer and if it's certified pre-owned, fine. Fly there, drive it home. Okay. There are so many great cars that I found over the years that they're in the middle of nowhere, and I've just gone there to pick them up. Is it inconvenient? Sure it is. But you know what? I've gotten some great deals and even better cars.
And a great road trip.
And a good road trip out of it. So like, like I said, this podcast is a little all over the place, and that's okay. Every now and then we're allowed to do that.
Sure. It's your podcast, Mike. You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want, but let's put it this way. Don't put yourself into debt for a car.
Yeah.
Get a car that you can truly afford after you've done the math in your home finances. Do not fall into these special, traps that dealers are setting for you. Be open to buying a car that you might not want. However, that is a good car that will do 90% of what you need it to do. Okay. 100,000 miles on a car these days is not that much. Most cars will go to 100, at minimum 150, 200,000 miles. The other part is I want you to think about how long it actually takes you to put that many miles on a vehicle, right? So if for instance, if you're going to go out, the car's got 110,000 miles on it, and you only drive 5,000 miles a year.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's okay, because it's going to take you forever to put miles on that car.
Yep.
So think about that as well. You don't fall into the traps. Do your homework, do your math. You'll be able to get a good car. And hey, here's the thing, man. I mean, drop us a line. Like, this gets posted up on YouTube. Leave a comment in the comments section. Ask myself, ask Ryan questions. We'll answer them for you. And if we don't have the answers off the top of our head, we'll do the research and get you the information. Otherwise, if you're looking for a great classic, obviously go to Hemmings.com, go to the classifieds and the auctions and the make offer pages. I promise, for classics and collectibles, we are the source. And if you want something new, just do your homework and please don't go into debt. It's so not worth it for a car.
Yep.
That's it.
That's
it. Guys, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.